Raider Nation. Thank you for joining us on the Only Nation podcast, brought to you by the Raider Ramble and sponsored by Betway. My name is Heidi, but you may know me as Kepler Prom Dress or even Raider Ladybug. I'm here with T3 Raider Facts, and we're ready to talk some Raiders football together.
Well, Heidi, we've got a lot to talk about today. I feel like we should title this episode The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Today on the show, we'll talk about what's been going on over the course of the past week, capped off by a narrow loss against the heavily favored San Francisco 49ers, and it took overtime to decide the outcome.
Okay, Raider Nation, we would love to hear from you, so here's how you can get in touch with us. Give us a call on the Only Nation podcast voicemail line at 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. You can also check us out on the web at onlynationpod.com. And Heidi, let me also add a Happy New Year to you. We haven't talked since Christmas, so hope you and your family had a good holiday, and Happy New Year's. We're recording this actually on New Year's Day after the game, so let's start out 2023 on a positive note.
Well, Happy New Year to you and your family and to all of our listeners. I had a great holiday season, and I am ready for a new year.
Absolutely. Let's get to it.
Here's the latest Raider news.
After a tumultuous week that saw the benching of 9-year starting quarterback and team captain Derek Carr, and a war on social media between his defenders and his detractors, Jarrett Stidham made his first NFL start and played well, totaling 399 scrimmage yards and throwing for 3 touchdowns, as the Raiders nearly came away with the win, falling 37-34 in overtime against the Niners in Allegiant Stadium.
And, hardly anybody saw this coming. I know we had talked about it. You said you weren't really surprised that Stidham played as well as he did. I kind of was, simply because he was going up against the number one defense. And it takes some repetitions to really get things going in stride. But he got his receivers involved. He took the team down on the first couple of drives and did very well. And this offense exploded like we had hoped it would over the course of the season. It finally got on track. We can only shake our heads and wonder what would have happened had this happened all year long, and we'd had the defense kind of catching up. But we'll talk about the defense a little bit later. But again, great job by Jarrett Stidham coming out of the gates, and I'm suddenly not as worried about the last week of the season as I was previously.
Yeah, I wasn't really surprised at all. I think I saw enough during preseason to let me know that he definitely knew the offense. And while he didn't work with a lot of starters in the preseason, the Raiders did play quite a few starters in the preseason, so he at least got some snaps with them. It wasn't a lot, but it was something. Jarrett's a good quarterback, so it didn't really surprise me that he came out on all cylinders and fired away. Now, I had kind of tried to talk myself down from that. I actually kept on trying to tell myself, okay, now don't be disappointed, because he is playing the number one defense. But, he went out there and he played his little heart out, and he did a really good job.
And I was curious to see what kind of sync he would have with Darren Waller, with Devontae Adams, even with some of the other receivers that he hadn't played a lot of time with. Maybe he has in practice, but again, game situations are a little bit different. And I was concerned about the fact that he might not be able to ward off that rush of the 49er defense. And I was concerned about turnovers. There were a couple of turnovers, but I will point out for a lot of Raider Nation that Kenny Stabler had his fair share of turnovers. Now, I'm not comparing Jarrett Stidham to Kenny Stabler. I'm just saying that turnovers and mistakes do happen, but you can't turn your back on the 3 touchdown tosses that he had.
Not at all. And I think what we really saw was how the offense can change and how its dynamics can change when you have a quarterback that's a little bit more mobile. He was able to extend some plays, run for some first downs, and that's something that we haven't seen out of Derek Carr. Now, as much as I love Derek and my heart and soul is with him, Jarrett was able to bring something to the table that Derek simply can't because he's not that style of a player.
I agree. And again, this will continue to evolve. We only have one more week left in the season, but we hit the ground running pretty well.
Davante Adams finished the game with 153 receiving yards on 7 catches. This was his 8th game this season with at least 100 receiving yards, and his 5th game with multiple touchdown catches, with 2 on the day. Adams is now the new franchise record holder for most receiving yards in a season, which was previously held by Pro Football Hall of Famer Tim Brown since 1997.
Now, I would like to go on record by saying this. Davante Adams, I know that Derek Carr is his friend, and I know that how close they are and how shaken up and busted up he was with seeing his friend be seated when he indicated many times that Derek was the reason why he came to Vegas. But Davante Adams was a Raider fan from way back, and this was a lifelong dream for him. He got to be closer to family. He's a Raider. And regardless of whether Derek is tossing the ball or not, I think there was some speculation among people on social media, and still is, about whether Adams would demand a trade, want out of Vegas, just not want a part of the franchise anymore. But I think people may be changing their tune when they saw how successful he was with another quarterback who was getting him the ball. And again, he only had 7 catches. He could probably have had more than that. But Stidham did an excellent job spreading the ball around, and you never really knew when it was going to Davante. And, of course, he got the other members of the offense involved as well. So I don't feel as scared toward Davante Adams and what his feelings are toward the team as I did earlier in the week.
And dare I say, I think some of the Raiders players were probably impressed with Jarrett Stidham, and Davante might have been one of them.
Not only impressed, but shaking their heads saying that's what the offense should look like.
The Raiders' offense generated 500 yards on Sunday against the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL. The Raiders scored 10 points on their first 2 drives, the first time San Francisco has allowed an opponent to score on its first 2 drives all season long.
And that is a telling stat right there. Again, the San Francisco defense has not allowed an opponent to score on its first 2 drives all season long until they got to the Raiders, to a guy who had never had an NFL start before, an offense that was not doing anything. It was in shambles, and people wondered if they would put any points at all up on the board against San Francisco. Well, they did that, and they did that in droves, and they almost beat the 49ers. So, once again, the offense generated 500 yards on Sunday against the number 1 ranked defense. That says it all.
And the 49ers had not allowed any points scored in the last 2 minutes of the game until they ran into the Raiders. So another victory for the Raiders on Sunday.
Yeah, things are pointing up certainly in that direction.
Jerron Harmon and newly acquired Harvey Lange each had 9 tackles to lead the Raiders on defense, while Amik Robertson contributed with an interception. On the day, the Silver and Black registered 4 tackles for loss, although they did not record any sacks. On the other side of the ball, the Raiders' offense did not allow Jarrett Stidham to be sacked a single time.
We talk about, and I'll take the second part of this first, that we talk about the development of the offensive line, how much they progressed over the course of the season, despite not adding a key veteran free agent over the course of the season. They're continuing to gel. They're continuing to impress me and do the things that they need to do. They only had 49 penalty yards during the game, which again is an improvement there. They did not allow Stidham to be sacked a single time, and that's something I thought they would give up at least 2 or 3 sacks, maybe even 4. But again, they weathered that storm. Jerron Harmon, once again, is proving to pay dividends for this defense and emerging as the leader. And Harvey Lange came from out of nowhere. They each had 9 tackles. Meek Robertson contributed with an interception. So this defense is playing well at points. They're just not consistent, and they don't have a tremendous number of playmakers like other teams do that you can rely on play after play and game after game. Hopefully that's something that will be addressed during the course of the offseason. And I'm busy scouting free agent wires and also drafts. We're going to have lots of information during the offseason to take a look at that. I will prepare myself and our listeners and have you all ready to roll when it comes time to reach that point.
Well, I know it's only one game, but hopefully this will help the cries of the fans saying, I want a first round quarterback. Maybe those cries will subside a little bit. Maybe fans will be a little bit more content going with Jarrett Stidham for another season or another veteran quarterback. I believe Jarrett Stidham is a free agent at the end of the year, so he would have to be re-signed. But I'm just hoping that the cries for a first-round draft pick being a quarterback might subside just a little bit, and the Raiders can actually focus on defense like we've been calling for them to do for the last 2 decades.
Well, Heidi, there's a true North Pole and a true South Pole, and those places aren't going anywhere. And I think the people that are the Derek Carr promoters and detractors are going to come out in droves. There are those who still want Jarrett Stidham to fail, and they want to be able to point at it and say, "You see, Derek Carr would have done much better." Well, Derek Carr is not a part of the equation now. He was for 9 years, but some people have to just kind of agree that we need to move on. We need to at least go ahead and focus on what this team can be under new leadership and have all of our support there. Now, who the next quarterback will be after the season remains to be seen. And again, that may be a work in progress. We may have to take a minor step back before we move forward. But again, this is something that this organization has not done since 2014. And I will tell everyone again and remind you that Derek Carr, when he was drafted in the second round. He was not one of the top draft picks and ended up doing quite well. Now, 9 years, people will say he was consistent but mediocre at the same time. He did get the Raiders to the playoffs twice, only played in one playoff game. But again, there's a lot more involved than just one player. And, Dan Marino's a classic example of that. There's a Hall of Famer who got his team to a Super Bowl once, but never tasted Super Bowl success. And by and large, his teams did not go to the playoffs as often as they could have. So, again, this team is a lot further away than just one player, which we will address a little bit later.
Yeah, and Derek Carr is not part of the equation. I know some people are still arguing whether he will be traded or released and whether he will come back next year. He is not coming back to be a Raider next year. If he was, the Raiders would not have sat him. They sat him because not only did they want to evaluate talent, but they also wanted to make sure that he didn't get injured because he had an injury clause in his contract. If he would have been injured in the last 2 games of the year, the Raiders would have owed him $33 million next year. And they definitely didn't want to do that. So they sat him down. Now, the way they did it, I don't agree with the way they did it. He's somebody who has given his blood, sweat, and tears to the Raiders and has never backed down, has always given his heart and soul to the team. So the way they did it, I wasn't impressed with. I'm still have a sour taste in my mouth over it. But I understand why they did it as well. And, as a fan, I accept it. And I have no other choice but to move on as a fan and just say, hey, whatever you've got next, I'm going to root for it.
Yeah, I talked with a friend of mine in the Bay Area this past week, and he said, you had to think, you had to know that Derek Carr was not going to have his shining moment as he exited as Raiders quarterback, that he was going to have the rug pulled out from underneath him in typical Raider fashion. And again, you can point the finger of blame at anyone within the organization, whether it's Mark Davis or Josh McDaniels or whoever. But what he was saying was you had to believe and understand that as polarizing a figure as Derek Carr has been over the course of much of his career, especially since the injury at the end of 2016, that something like this inevitably was going to happen.
Absolutely. Okay, so how do you think the Raiders looked on Sunday?
Well, as we mentioned, I was impressed with the way the Raiders came out of the gate and played confidently. I saw not only Jarrett Stidham playing well, but I saw zip on the ball. He was throwing some dimes. Not to say that Derek Carr didn't, but I saw a lot more zip and a lot more of a quick release and accurate passes than I have seen of Carr over the last few weeks. I just think that Jared Stidham's confidence is growing. I think it was there in the preseason, even though we were playing with a lot of backups and not having the sync with a lot of his starters. But again, I think that will progress. I think that will continue to progress. And if he can do what he did against the number one defense in the NFL, I can only hope what he will do against Kansas City. You know they're going to be fired up to play the Chiefs. They've been eliminated from the playoffs, so they've got really nothing left at stake except pride. And how prideful would it be to just trash your number one opponent, your divisional rival, and the one who's pretty much been kings of the division for the last several years? What a statement that would make to go ahead and end on a positive note with a win over the Chiefs in Allegiant Stadium next Sunday.
So what do you see happening in that game?
Well, I would like to say they'll win. Realistically, I think that probably it will be close, like the game against the 49ers. I'm going to say that they will end up on the short end of the stick, but I think it will be a one-score game. So it could be a 41-34 game. I think it would be an offensive shootout. It's a matter of, I think, who gets the ball at the end. The 49ers, I think, were convinced that they could get the ball at the end. They could win the game in regulation, and they probably should have because Robbie Gould missed that field goal at the end of regulation. So I think the Chiefs may be confident that they can get the ball back last. They can do the same thing. Now, I wouldn't be surprised, though, to see a really motivated team come out and a different defensive scheme put in place that really gets after Patrick Mahomes and starts flooding some of those middle lanes. If we can do that and cover the middle of the field, which was the problem against San Francisco, Brock Purdy was finding the holes in the middle of that defense, which has been problematic all year. But if we can jump a couple of routes, get a couple of picks and get some pressure on Mahomes and work him into some mistakes early, then things could change. And if they could jump out to a quick lead and actually hold on to it, who knows? Maybe the Raiders come away with a victory. But I think either way, it's going to be a one-score game. I just don't see the Raiders actually able to do it. I'm hoping that I'm wrong, but I think that it probably will be a one-score game, probably around the neighborhood of 7 points for the Chiefs.
The 49ers definitely had the middle of the field open to run around and play in. And if the Chiefs manage to do that, we all know who loves to sit in there and gobble up touchdowns and gobble up yardage. And the Raiders do not have an answer for Travis Kelce. They've never had an answer for Travis Kelce. And I am not optimistic that they'll have an answer for him next week either. But I also would love to see a close game, and I could see a close game happening. And, being spoiler, I mean, that's one of the few things the Raiders have been able to play for with pride over the last 2 decades. So, yeah, play spoiler. The Chiefs could be playing for that number one overall position. So, Raiders playing spoiler, I would love that. I would love to see them pull that off.
That would be great. And we could have the players exiting the field saying, "You're not number one." It'd be great if they could look at them as they're exiting the field saying, "Always remember, we made you number 2."
You're number 2. You're number 2.
That would be great.
Okay, T3, why don't you give us your top 3 for the week?
T3's top 3.
Okay, here is this week's version of T3's top 3. Number 1, Josh Jacobs currently leads the NFL in rushing with 1,539 yards on 306 attempts, scoring 11 touchdowns in the process, regardless of what team he ends up on next year. Number 28 has definitely proven his worth and set the bar very high for running backs in this league. Number 2, Rock Ya-Sin, Denzel Perryman, and Chandler Jones were all placed on injured reserve before the Niners game, so an already depleted and outmanned defense had to really strain to keep up with San Francisco. Now, Jones is still under contract for next season, but we may have seen the last of the other two in silver and black uniforms. And number 3, as of right now, the Raiders own the 7th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. The Bears and Cardinals are two of the teams sitting ahead of the Raiders, and they've already settled on their quarterbacks of the future. If the Raiders decide to draft a quarterback in the first round, they would have to decide if maybe it would be worth the risk to move up to Chicago's current number 2 spot. Otherwise, they would have to choose whoever's still on the board or wait until round 2 and address the defensive side of the ball first. And that is this week's version of T3's Top 3.
Didn't Josh Jacobs score his 12th touchdown today?
Okay, well, I was going off the stats they put on today, but I think you may be right. It's either 11 or 12.
Either way, it's a bunch of touchdowns.
Let's say, yes, it was 12. So either you're right or I'm right. Either way, 11 or 12, I'll take it. 1,539 yards, I'll take it.
You know, it's always hard to record on a game day because the stats are being continually updated and news keeps coming out and filtering out. So it's kind of hard to put something together because you never quite know what the status is of the information you're going off of. But Josh Jacobs, a career year. I mean, he has put the league on notice and told them he is a number 1 elite running back, and there's no doubt about it. Rock Ya-Sin, Denzel Perryman, and Chandler Jones, yeah, they're out. Jones is still under contract for the next season. I would love to see Denzel Perryman come back. I'd really like to see Rock Ya-Sin come back. Chandler Jones, he had started to make an impact the last few games. But really, the two that I would like to see back more are Rock Ya-Sin and Denzel Perryman. Chandler Jones, it's going to be a big question of what the Raiders do with him because his salary cap hit is so high next year. Whether he comes back remains to be seen. But I hate the thought that we might have seen the last of the other two in Raider uniforms.
Yeah, and I was concerned when they picked Perryman up that maybe the injury history would catch up and we wouldn't see him on the field as much as we have over the course of the last 2 seasons. Well, now he is injured. So let's hope he can shake that off and come back. I really would like to see him back next year. Would like to see Rock Ya-Sin as well. Although with health issues, again, there's so many changes that are going to happen on the defensive side of the ball. It could involve both of them being on the outs.
And as far as the Raiders drafting a quarterback in the first round, I don't even want to think about it. I want them to go defense, or at the very worst, offensive line. But please go defense, and please do not get an Ohio State cornerback. Just, that's all I have to say.
Well, and I will add, let's not get a cornerback in round 1, period. We don't have a good history there. There's only been 2 examples of corners that have worked out as a first-round draft pick. One, Charles Woodson, is a Hall of Famer, and the other one, Nnamdi Asomugha, very well could have been. But every time I see them trying to draft a cornerback, I think of Al Davis, selecting the fastest guy in the room in the combine, and that was either a receiver or a cornerback, and it just hasn't worked out well. Now they definitely need to pick up a corner in the draft, and they might need to pick one up during somewhere in free agency. But let's not go there.
Let's just get a monster defensive tackle, please. I'm salivating over the idea of a monster defensive tackle.
I'll tell you this, I would not mind. This could happen, and I'm calling my shot now. If there's any way that they could maybe trade a number 1 or something to move up to that 2nd overall spot that Chicago has and draft Jalen Carter, the stud defensive lineman out of Georgia.
Sweet dreams are made of these.
There we go. I could go for that.
I could too. Give us a call at 904-701-8667. Leave a voicemail or text message at that number, or send in a message via social media, and we'll share your thoughts. And on Raider Roots this week?
All right, well, we just got this in this week. So next up is the year 2014. A promising draft and a coaching change in midseason is overshadowed by the results on the field. And we also get to celebrate Ray Guy going into the Hall of Fame.
Yes, it was an exciting episode to edit, and it's already up and ready to go.
All right.
Now, as far as voicemails or emails go, we did get a message from Soren. We're definitely going to address it more later, but did you want to read it or read all of it yet at this point, T3?
Yeah, let me go ahead and read that. Again, Soren, we do appreciate so much you checking in with us and giving us another email. It says, "Hi guys, since you need help getting rid of swag gear and stickers, I'll be more than happy to take some." So yeah, you're going to get some. So be on the lookout for that. Thanks for a great show. I really enjoy your weekly shows, and especially Raider Roots. And thank you for that, Soren. I've heard them all. I can tell you that the Danish Raiders fan base is really hurting with the rest of the nation because of how horrible the team and coaches have been. Do you guys know how our new announcer and Sandra Douglas Morgan have done so far? If you guys had to rank all the seasons from 2000 to this season, how low will this season rank? Can you guys talk about how there's been only one, maybe two draft classes since Reggie McKenzie took over as GM until now? 2016, 2019, 2020 just seems like just textbook on how not to draft. But we will be here rooting every Sunday for the team. Go Raiders. Kind regards, Soren. So Soren, thank you so much for that. And we're going to spend a lot more time and attention to looking at the different seasons going all the way back to 2001, 2000, and actually ranking them. We're going to each rank our top five and our bottom five. We'll take a look at that during the off season when we have more time. I will say this: Sandra Douglas Morgan is doing an outstanding job as team president, and Jason Horowitz, listening to the broadcast, he and Lincoln Kennedy, he was just giddy. He was talking about the excitement coming in as a first-year announcer, replacing a legend, Brent Musburger, and just how exciting this has been this year. 4 overtimes, and again, there's a lot of excitement here, particularly toward the end of the season. Unlike some seasons where things have just kind of tapered off and just ended on a blah note, I don't see that happening this year.
I remember watching Horowitz's call of the end of the Patriots game. He was so excited. I mean, it was a joy to watch him make that call. If you haven't seen the call, look on Facebook. There are a bunch of videos of a split screen of him making the call and of the play developing. And it's a lot of fun to see him describe the play, second by second, and go through and guide the Raiders to victory with his voice. It's worth looking up and watching if you haven't already seen it.
This is going to be something I'm going to really enjoy for years to come. He has been a great addition to the Raiders from the announcing side. Again, a challenging season for sure. The results have not been there the way we wanted, but there have been some epic moments for sure.
All right, T3, why don't we find out what we do or we don't know?
All right, it's time for another edition of Did You Know? In this segment, I will ask Heidi and all of our listening audience a Raiders-related question with a list of answers to choose from. And even Jean Grey, yes, you can answer this question as well. It's multiple choice, so just give it your best guess. Now, here is this week's question. Jarrett Stidham threw for the most passing yards, 365, of any Raiders quarterback making his first career start. Who held the previous record for the Raiders? Was it A, Derek Carr? Was it B, Terrell Pryor? Or was it C, Todd Marinovich? Heidi, what do you think?
I think, like most of your quizzes, it could be any one of them. And once again, your hint, the previous record of 243 yards, does not give much of a clue.
Okay, I will tell you it is not Derek Carr.
Okay.
So your choices are either Terrell Pryor or Todd Marinovich.
So I got a 50-50 chance.
You got a 50-50 chance.
Well, the one that I like better is Terrell Pryor. But Todd Marinovich, he's certainly an entertaining character.
Is that your answer?
Terrell Pryor was always a running quarterback, so I'm going to go with C. Todd Marinovich.
You're absolutely correct. Todd Marinovich is the answer. That's Todd Marinovich actually gets credit for one thing as a Raider. So there he is. He holds the record for the previous record of 243 yards in his first career start. So he did that and not a whole lot else after that.
Yeah, because I was thinking, Derek Carr, his first year was pretty painful, and Terrell Pryor definitely he had some wheels, but passing wasn't his strongest suit. So that was why I went with Todd, and it actually worked this time.
There you go. That is the answer.
All right, sounds good.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, now it is time for Heidi's Heroes.
Flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
Okay, Raider Nation, the hero this week is somebody that is very polarizing to Raider Nation. But he is someone that even his detractors can't say that he's a bad person. This dude, he's a really good person. And he gives a lot of himself to the community. He is a very big contributor financially and of his time to Valley Children's Hospital in Madera, California. He is somebody who, well, he got benched. And a lot of Raider Nation was happy about it. A lot of Raider Nation was really mad about it. But I'm talking about Derek Carr. Derek Carr gave the last 9 years of his life to the Raiders. And when he did that, he had some pretty impressive stats. Now, stats aren't everything. I know that. Wins are everything. But I did just want to read a little bit of what he's done for the Raiders. Derek Carr's Raiders franchise rankings out of a minimum of 150 attempts. He has 3,201 completions, which is first. 4,958 attempts, which is first. A 64.6% completion percentage, which is first. 35,222 passing yards, which is first. 217 passing touchdowns, which is first. 91.8 quarterback rating, which is first. And a total of 69 wins, which is second. He's only missed 3 games in 9 years. Now, regardless of whether you love him or hate him, there is no doubt that he is a warrior. And he exemplifies everything that a Heidi hero can do. On the field, off the field, he's given his heart and soul to the team, to his community, and to his teammates. Derek Carr, you are the hero this week. You are a hero every week, but you are Heidi's hero this week.
Hear, hear. And I will say he's been a hero for a decade. He has. And he's represented the silver and black so well. And in a day and age where athletes are very quick to let down their fan bases and even their societies, he has helped pick this team up. He and Rich Bisaccia, I think, were the two guys that put the team on their backs and guided them to the playoffs last year. I think a lot of people forget that when people were talking about how much he was trashed this year and not doing things well. And I will agree. Derek has not had a good year, and it ended the way that it did in bad fashion. And I hate to say that maybe the last pass he ever threw as a Raider ended up as an interception. Same thing happened to Brett Favre. Now, Brett Favre had a Hall of Fame career with the Packers, but his last pass with the Packers was an interception. His last pass as a professional was an interception. So, again, you have to look at the good things. And he had led so many Raider comebacks. And I always gleefully think about the game against the Chargers at the end of the season last year where he confidently was looking at the refs and then called the timeout at the end to send the field goal team on. And again, it was a field goal that won it, not a touchdown. And we had too many of those. And there were so many situations where We all would have wanted 7 points, but we got 3 instead. But he was able to move the ball up and down the field, and I really think that the broken leg in 2016 altered his future as far as the team goes, and he was able to come back and have lots of good moments in 2020 and 2021, just not enough. But I think you and I both agree that until we really get this defense fixed, the offense was always going to have to win things by just scoring a ton of points. And they were able to do that against San Francisco without Derek. But there are situations where the offense with Derek put up a lot of points and they still didn't win. Now, again, I'm hoping that trajectory changes. I would love to see the defense be in a position to where it's not reliant on the quarterbacks to do that all the time. But Derek held himself well, and he let some of his receivers benefit who would not normally. I think about how much he benefited Nelson Aguilar when he came in. People thought, well, he's kind of a has-been and a wash-up. Think about Seth Roberts. Seth Roberts came in as a very unheralded player, and Derek Carr did a lot with him. Denarius Moore, a fourth-round rookie, came in, and again, Derek was able to hit him with quite a few passes. So, again, he was able to pick up and elevate his team. I think just as his career progressed, he wasn't able to do it as much or as successfully as he would have liked, particularly with his best friend Devontae coming in. I would have loved to have seen him and Devontae play in Derek Carr's heyday, before the injury happened in 2016. If Devontae Adams is on this team in 2016 and Derek Carr doesn't get injured, there's a Super Bowl happening, I think, in that season for the Raiders. So again, a great call out, Heidi. Derek Carr, I salute you on behalf of Raider Nation, who gives a crap. There will be those who are going to just talk about what garbage he is, the fact that they're glad what happened to him happened. We mentioned this earlier. I don't think it could have really happened any other way than it did. But I hope that Derek lands on his feet, is successful in any adventure that he goes through, whether it's continuing to play football or leaving football, spending more time with his family and doing whatever. He's going to do great things. He is a great leader of people. He is a great person, and he is a hero.
He is. And just my gut feeling right now is that he will be traded. He will work with the team. He will be agreeable to a trade. He'll waive his no trade clause, and he'll go somewhere else and he'll be successful. How successful? I don't know. If it's a team with the defense, watch out, world. I wish him well. I'm always going to be a fan of Derek Carr. And, he's always going to be someone who, like I said, exemplifies Heidi's hero. He gives to the community, he gives to his family, he gives to his team. He is the kind of guy that if your son turned out to be like him, you could be proud. And I salute you, Derek. You've served Raider Nation well.
And the NFL and all of sports and the Las Vegas community, as well as the Oakland community too. So the communities that he was in benefited from him, and the Las Vegas community is still benefiting from him.
And that about does it for this week on the Only Nation podcast. If you'd like to help support the show, you can send in a donation at paypal.me/onlynationpod. You can find me, Heidi Stabbert, on social media as @KevlarPromDress on Twitter and Instagram, or Heidi Stabbert on Facebook. You can also find me on YouTube on Captain Jack Rackham's channel every other Tuesday night. I join the DC wench Peggy Holmes and Andrea Trask on Silver and Black Ladies Night.
Raider Nation, as our podcast continues to grow, we would like you on board with us, so please contact the show. Send us your name and address so we can send you some free Raiders swag and podcast stickers. Call us and tell us what you want to know. Throw us an interesting nugget that we can use on one of our upcoming episodes, and become a part of what we're doing here. Remember, this is the Only Nation, and we want you to be a part of it. So call us, 904-701-8667. That's 904-701-8667. Call us now and join the Only Nation podcast family. There are 2 easy ways to find me on social media. You can send me a tweet at T3_sports703, as several of you do, or you can hit me up on Facebook at Thom, Thom Jones. Cardinals. And thank you again for your support of the Raider Roots podcast. As we mentioned, the next episode coming out addresses the year 2014. Please give me your feedback on the episodes and tell me what you want to know more about.
As always, we look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, everyone, go Raiders.
We are not just a nation, we are the only nation. And Happy New Year, everyone. And regardless of the outcome, we are Raiders. Happy New Year, everybody.